Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast this week. In holiday Thanksgiving week has thrown yet another wrench into the programming, but hey, I really like this split format thing. I think it works pretty good for football season. Follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod, and of course, head on over to Facebook. Give us a like over there as well. As we continue to grow the YouTube channel, more traffic's heading over that way, Russ. So more and more folks are finding the channel and watching those video podcasts. Please click the link and subscribe to the ThunderCast YouTube channel. You just don't want to miss any opportunity that you've got to get in on any of the ticket giveaways or anything else that might pop up in the future. And we, sometimes we do a Facebook exclusive giveaway or a Twitter exclusive giveaway. Mm-hmm. But you might as well, put yourself in a position to win whatever it is we may be giving away. We've got a split format. This is the back half of this week's content. We've got a big football game to preview with Georgia State coming to town for senior day for the herd. And we're going to finally give you an around the herd athletic department wrap up. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to cover across those two fronts. So let's get ourselves a quick word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com and get it rolling. If you've been hurt in a wreck, visit 304carwreck.com on the web or on Facebook. Matt and Jason are experienced injury lawyers in Huntington who have helped many people, just like you, with claims throughout West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. Car wrecks, truck wrecks, and injury claims aren't just something they do, it's what they do. Find them at 304carwreck.com. Okay, Russ, I guess we've got to start out by talking about this football game we've got going on. Regular season finale, home finale. Georgia State Panthers coming to town. And it's no longer a must-win game, but we got into a little bit of discussion online yesterday. At least I did. I'm sure you caught wind of some of the comments and things. It was just kind of like a preemptive grade to the season. If Marshall wins out and ends up at 9-4, what do you grade the season? I jumped the gun a little bit and I said it was an A, and then I thought about it. I'm like, no, it's really not. So it's not a must-win, but as far as I think fan feelings about that, this is one you kind of got to have, right? Mm-hmm. We've lost enough games at home. We need to close it out strong. We really need to go 2-0, get that bowl win, close out the season on a winning streak at the Joan. So this is a big one, right? Mm-hmm. Before we get into any type of info with Georgia State, Marshall's kind of struggled in recent years with those senior day home finales. I remember a couple of, it's been several years ago now, but I remember just like excruciating losses to like Southern Miss a couple years back, like 28-27 and stuff like that. So it would be nice to just go out in convincing fashion, at home one time and just really, really put the hammer down. And I think Marshall is built sort of to do that against this team. And we'll talk about some of those reasons why, but what do you get the feeling about Georgia State?
Well, on your point about senior day and home game and everything, we have had a streak. We didn't have the podcast during this time, but we had a streak of years where it seemed like Doc's teams 2 years in a row or something, like they just fell off. They were doing great and then they fell off. And last year we had a totally different situation where we were handling WKU in that first half, and then Grant Wells goes out, and I mean the wheels came off worse than anything possible could have happened. We were doing very well in that game. I know that the WKU fans see it differently. When
Mom's listening, by the way, he's listening.
I don't care. He can at me just like anybody else does. But no, they see it differently. And you had Moonshine Throwdown podcast at the time, and that was discussed. But that first half, especially right up until the very 1 minute left or 30 seconds left in the first half. Anyway, we don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Needless to say, we have had some falling off at the end of seasons and everything for various reasons for at least 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more so. But I don't want to talk about too much more because that's something that I want to specifically talk about here in a minute.
Sure. So let's talk about Georgia State then. They're coming into Huntington as a 4-7 ball club. They've really got nothing to play for other than personal pride in this one. They're not going to go bowling. Really, what they can do, they're 3-4 in Sun Belt Conference. I guess by beating Marshall, what the big accolade in this one is that it forces them into a tie in the standings with the Herd. So that's about all they're playing for. This game, of course, is going down Saturday, November 26th. It's a noon kickoff. Game will be broadcast to ESPN Plus for those of us that live far, far away from town and can't make it. This will be the first all-time matchup between these two programs. Georgia State's a relatively young program in college athletics or college football. First season was back in 2010, so they haven't been at it very long, but they've got several bowl wins under their belt. Famously, you mentioned Western Kentucky a few years ago. I think it might have even been the first year we moved down here to Florida. They played Western Kentucky at the Cure Bowl in Orlando, and I went, and Georgia State ended up winning that game. This, of course, will be senior day for Marshall. It's always interesting to see which guys make the walk on senior day because that kind of gives you an idea of who may or may not be returning to the Herd. You know, we've seen guys take the walk and then return. You know, they make have a change of heart or make a different decision and decide to return for another year. But that's always an interesting thing. A win today and a James Madison loss against Coastal Carolina will vault Marshall into second place all alone in the Sun Belt East Division standings, which I mentioned on the recap. Georgia Southern would be a pretty impressive feat versus where we were a few weeks ago. A loss, like I mentioned, will put Marshall in a tie with Georgia State and perhaps a tie with Appalachian State in the overall record. Of course, the Herd holds the tiebreaker that is meaningless. But if App gets the win, it'll be a three-way tie with four teams at 4-4 in the conference. Power Index kind of likes the Herd. 71% chance to win at home. Herd's currently -6 as we record Wednesday. Not too long before kickoff. I can't see too much changing, but boy, it did last week when some news broke, didn't it? Over under 45 on this one. What's the bird's eye view coming in, Russ?
Bird's eye view is I think anyone would consider Marshall to be a rushing team. Wouldn't you think that's fair?
Yeah, it's fair.
All right. So Georgia State has more rushing attempts than we have, a lot less passes than we have. Well, I say a lot, like 40 some passes less than we have, 20 some rushes more than we have. Mm-hmm. But they have 400 yards more rushing than we have on the year. So bird's eye view, people may be thinking this is a balance. They are pretty rush heavy. They rush, run the ball almost twice as often as they pass. And we'll get into more specifics, but this is going to be a little bit different than the last several games. We've had to worry about some aerial attacks and some good quarterbacks, seasoned quarterbacks, that sort of thing. You got McCall, Chase Bryce. We missed out on playing Todd Centeo at JMU, but we had a stretch here of some pass heavy or very, very seasoned passers, and it looks like now there's going to be a big rushing attack that we really need to worry about. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, some of these stats I'm going to talk about are going to drive that point home, particularly when we talk about the running, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of these players. Of course, I say it just about every week. It starts where it always starts, with the quarterback. And I don't know if it starts anywhere more importantly to a team than this particular quarterback. In fact, it's a guy that we mentioned several episodes ago. I think when we were heading into the Old Dominion game, I mentioned the stats that Darren Granger put up against Old Dominion. And that seemed to worry some of our buddies, the ODU Monarchists, about what Cam Fancher potentially brought to the table. Mm-hmm. It wasn't nearly the same stat line of these two guys in those games, but still, ODU lost both of those, right? So let's start. Number 3, quarterback Darren Granger, 6'4", 195-pound senior. So still that upperclassman quarterback, played a lot of ball. He's just not a super polished quarterback, but He's the only quarterback to throw a pass for the Panthers this entire season, so he's incredibly durable. 154 out of 270 on the season, 2,140 yards, 17 touchdowns versus 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 27 times on the season, but 9 times total in the last 2 weeks. Also, 146 carries on the season, a team high, 732 yards rushing, and an additional 7 touchdowns on the ground. Number 26, running back, Tucker Gregg, 5'10", 220-pound senior, 161 carries, leads the team, 684 rushing yards, and 11 touchdowns on the ground, leads the team in that category. A third running back. Usually we feature two runners, but because of the dual threat aspect of Granger, you have to talk about another running back. Number 23 running back, Marcus Carroll, 5'10", 205. He's a junior, 115 carries for 591 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns on the ground. All in all, we're going to talk about a receiver here in a second, but all in all, these Georgia State Panthers have 4 runners with a minimum of 440 yards on the season and at least 5 yards per carry.
And that fourth one, I know you didn't mention him by name, but just so everyone will know, he is going to be out for this game. So they could have an added load to these other 2 running backs that you just mentioned and the quarterback. So that, even with him being out, that could come into play because they could rush more.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, what are we looking at? 1,318, probably close to 2,000 yards between those 3 guys that we talked about, right?
Yeah, it's over, actually.
Okay, so yeah, pretty damn close. One receiver we're going to feature, number 2 wide receiver, Jamari Thrash. I love that name, by the way. 6 foot, 180-pound junior. 51, actually, he leads the team in all 3 of these categories. 51 receptions, 955 yards, and 6 touchdowns, is actually tied for the team lead. But he's basically the big aerial threat for Georgia State. They have some other guys with some other stats, but the disparity between the number 1 and number 2 guy is pretty big. Defensively, number 40 linebacker, Jordan Vinzale, 6 foot, 225-pound senior, 90 total tackles on the season, 52 of those solo, a sack and a half, 3 passes defended, and 3 fumble recoveries. Number 34 safety, Antavius Lane, 5'9", 180-pound junior, 86 tackles on the season, 62 of those solo, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. Then there's a big drop-off in production from a tackle standpoint. Your third leading tackler goes all the way down. Number 2 is 86. Number 3 is 47 total tackles. Number 1 linebacker, John Trey Hunter, 6'2", 200-pound senior, 47 total tackles, 28 of those solo, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. 1 of those went for a touchdown, a fumble recovery, and a forced fumble. So he's a great all-around linebacker. The other 2 guys seem to be tallying all the tackles, allowing some of these other more athletic guys to make some of those more impact plays. A couple of other guys we're going to talk about, linebacker Shamar McCollum and defensive lineman Thomas Gore, each lead the team with 4.5 sacks apiece. And defensive back Quavian White leads with 4 interceptions. Impact plays throughout the team. This is through 11 games now. 25 total sacks, 13 interceptions, 9 forced fumbles, and 12 fumble recoveries. The last 2 games, all right, I'm going to continue that trend. I like that trend. Last 2 games, Georgia State 0-2, home loss to Louisiana Monroe, and an excruciating loss to James Madison on the road, 42-40. And we're going to talk about some of the things that happened in that game. The Herd, of course, conversely, is 2-0 with a home win to App State and a road win at Georgia Southern. Now, stats will fly through these last 2 games. Georgia State, points per game, 34. They're scoring 34 points per game, allowing 36.5. Marshall scoring 24.5 and allowing 15.5. Yards per game, Georgia State 396. The Herd 435. Yards allowed on defense, Georgia State 362.5. The Herd 338. Third down percentage from an offensive conversion standpoint, Georgia State 43%. They are 16 out of 37 over their last 2, but just 3 of 13 against James Madison last week. The Herd is 47% offensive conversion rate on third down, 16 of 34, 10 of 19 last week against Georgia Southern. Third down defense, Georgia State, 46% of the time they're giving it up. 12 of 26, 9 of 14. James Madison tallied last week. The Herd just 25%, continuing to lead the nation in that category. 7 of 28. Georgia Southern was just 2 of 11. We mentioned 0 of 9 in the recap. Time of possession, it really doesn't get any closer. 29 minutes, 43 seconds for Georgia State. The Herd, 27, 26. The turnovers, Georgia State is giving up 1.5 a game. The Herd just 1. Now, let's talk about some of these things. I'm sure you've got some things cocked and loaded before we get into keys, or they may intertwine with your keys. However they do, let's have some of that discussion.
I think all of mine are pretty much mostly in the keys to victory, but I do want to highlight a couple of different minor things. Scoring for them, this is not the last two games. This is all year long. They have scored 30.6 per game. They have given up 31.45 per game. So 31.5 to 31 or 30.5. They have obviously, with a losing record, been giving up more points than that, but our defense is still 15.5. It's right around half. So you have to believe that their number is going, what they have been used to scoring is going to come down a little bit. And we have been scoring 23.8, but this is an even more porous defense than what we faced last week. I'm hoping that we can finally go off. That's something to watch for, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the keys. The only other thing that I want to bring up is the sacks. We have, and I can't see their sack total. I wrote their ranking down instead of their sack total. So if you have that, chime in. But we have given up 33, but famously, as we spoke about, the last 3 games, we've only given up a total of 2. Mm-hmm. And so trending way in the right direction. And we have talked about it ad nauseum about how the changing of the quarterbacks, the sacks went down. We have a more elusive quarterback to get out of that. Just a different skill set that he brings to the table. The sack problem seems to have gone downhill quite a bit, but they are ranked 55th in the nation on sacks. So we just want to watch that. However, Marshall is ranked 30th or 27th in the nation, getting 30 sacks. So I really hope that we can get to them and they cannot get to us. Now, obviously, that's something you can say in every game, but it's just something to watch here. Everything else that I have stat-wise, all in the keys to victory.
I think a lot of these stats that you know, that I call, well, that's football 101. And I hate to be a spoiler. A lot of my keys to victory in this one are football 101 stuff because it looks like how this Georgia State team is built to succeed. If you can take care of a lot of the 101s, you're probably going to beat this team. What I want to touch on really quickly, I got to provide some context to this James Madison loss, because 42-40, you think, man, they were in a dogfight. Well, that doesn't tell the story. Georgia State was in complete control of this game in the first half. They had a 20-point lead going into halftime. They come out and at the half, James Madison rips off 28 straight points and then holds Georgia State to like 6 or 7 in the second half to eke out that victory. But wait, there's more, right? Mm-hmm. In that game, James Madison had 7 fumbles. They lost 4 of them, and 2 of those 4 were scooping scores for the Georgia State defense. So that's how they remained in control of that game in the first half and kept it so close. So I don't want folks thinking, wow, this Georgia State offense went up there and just lit up this James Madison defense. No, they were gifted several possessions. And I don't know what that says about James Madison. I take it as a compliment that, A, you can turn the ball over 7 times or have 7 potential drive-stopping turn. You turn it over 4, right? You get 3 fumbles back, but still win the game. I mean, it sucks that they didn't take care of the football, but they still won the game in spite of that. So I don't think we'll see Marshall giving up 2 scooping scores. I don't think we'll see them fumbling the ball 7 times. You know, weathering the storm of a turnover here and there, you can do that, right? But I just don't think we'll see a 7 turnover performance by the Herd here.
Yeah, a little bit more about that game is they were held scoreless in the second half up until 2.5 minutes to go. Granger got a run. That was their only 6 points. They went for two, which would have made it 42-42. They did not get it, obviously, and then they tried an onside kick, and JMU recovered, and that basically ended the game. But obviously 40 points, like you said, on paper you think, wow, they were an offensive juggernaut. He was 8 for 15 for 176 yards, and his one TD was a 75-yard pass to Thrash. So I mean, a lot of that came from that. Their leading rusher rushed for 13 times 35 yards. So Thrash had 136 of those 175, by the way.
And I should say that's not an outlying stat. If you go back and just look at the Georgia State schedule on, like ESPN or whatever, and it tells you the like leading passer, rusher, and receiver, he's that guy just about every week. Probably 7 of 11 games, he was the leading receiver, and the majority of those, he was over 100 yards. So he's the guy you definitely got to pay attention to. So look, let's talk about some keys to victory here. I've got 4 again.
I only have 3.
Okay, but that's okay. Again, I try to put a fourth point that we can both kind of play and have a little discussion with. So where does it start for you? What's your number one key to victory for the Herd this week?
We need to out Granger. So not to be with confused with out Wayne. We need to out Granger. We need to have that dual threat quarterback putting up bigger stats than Granger. And it's not just that. Can we win without it? Absolutely. But if we hold Granger to lower passing and lower rushing than what Fancher does, I love our chances in this game. He seems to drive this offense. Thrash can't catch if Granger doesn't throw it to him, right? So he's the leading rusher. So if we're holding him down, I'm talking season, not every game, obviously, but if we hold him and contain him to where he does not beat us with his wheels and he doesn't beat us with his arm, I don't think that they're going to beat us. Their defense is not, barring something ridiculous like almost happened at the James Madison game, their defense is not going to be able to beat us giving up 31.5 a game. Something crazy would have to happen, like a lot of turnovers, catastrophic injuries, that sort of thing. People getting ejected. I mean, this looks like on paper maybe one of the weakest defenses that we have played. Not that they don't have good players on there, just overall by the team. Look for us to get a lot of yards and a lot of points.
It's not unfair, right? And it's not even really that rude to say that. If your defense across the season through 11 games is giving up 30 plus points,
you're
not that damn stout.
31.5. Yeah.
I mean, through the same 11 games, Marshall's allowing
half of that,
under 20. Yeah.
15.5.
So it's not unfair. It's not rude, but I'm glad you said this. Brought back something that I heard the other day. You said barring something like ejections. I was listening to a little bit of a Georgia State podcast, and they mentioned that there were some comments made. I guess they're in a Facebook group or a forum or something, and they were talking about the game. And some fans were in there talking about how Georgia State was playing sort of dirty in that game against James Madison. And their knee-jerk reaction was like, oh, no. And then those fans had the receipts. They had video clips to where it would be like a little bit of a punch thrown, I believe, like what they said at the end of a tackle. And I'm like, okay, so something to be aware of. If you guys are listening, you Herd fans are listening, or you players are listening, they may try to do that sort of thing to you to coax you into an ejection or a response to, tilt the table in their favor a little bit. And, I mean, I don't like too many of our guys to take that sort of bait, but it's just something to be aware of. It's not something we generally talk about. My number one key to victory, surprisingly, is we have to smother Darren Granger, right? Like you said, if he leads the team in rushing, he's the only quarterback to have thrown a pass this season. Football 101 says stop the biggest weapon on offense, and that's the biggest weapon on offense. I don't think they've played a defense that's as, I don't know, good at every level. and sideline to sideline. Some teams have a good defensive line. They're lackluster on the secondary. Marshall's none of that. They're good at all three levels, and they've got guys that can track you down. We saw a little bit of a bump in the armor there last week against Georgia Southern in the rushing defense attack, which is not really worrisome because it's out of character for this Marshall team. That's the outlier, but it would be a great time to fix that.
One thing to say about that, though, and we talked about it on the recap. Yeah, they ran and all that, but what did they really do with it?
Nothing.
Right. They were not able to do anything with that. They got one touchdown. Boo.
Yeah.
So quick aside, before we go on to my second key to victory. So both of us had a very similar key to victory. I think 30-second discussion. What do you think would be the way that we do contain Granger from a scheme point of view?
I think it depends on how they start, right? If they start and it looks like Granger is content to be more of a runner because they don't want to test Abraham, Gilmore, and all these guys, or they do try to pass it and we just stifle it, right? And so I think you're at that point, you're like, all right, we probably need a spy. Right. We need somebody to follow Granger. And who better than a guy like Eli Neal, who's quick as a hiccup and, can lay the lumber on you. I like my chances with that guy on my side. So that to me is what it is. If it's a running approach they want to take, then you have to spy the guy, obviously, because I like our guys on the back end going man for man against just about anybody. Right. Especially if they're a basic. I'm not trying to throw shade here, but if the stats tell me they've got one legitimate play breaking making wide receiver, then I like my chances at covering that one guy. Right.
Yeah.
So I think I gang up on the run and try to make him beat me through the air.
So very, very similar to me. I do think we have a spy to do that at least throughout to see what he's going to do, like you said. I also think that tight lockdown, not necessarily double coverage on Thrash, but either Gilmore or Abraham one is going to be tasked, maybe a rotation of those guys. Maybe it depends on which side of the field he lines up on. It may be as simple as that. We might not have the same guy on him at all times. And hell, we might not be in man-to-man coverage at all the times in there, but definitely neutralizing him. I don't think that they have the weapons. Obviously, they've got other capable guys, but if you take out Thrash, you're taking out the pass for the most part on Granger. And then a spy and our already stout rush defense, barring what happened last week, I think that we can shut him down fairly easily. Now, he's really good, but our defense is elite.
Yep. I would tend to agree with that. If you eliminate Thrash, you're eliminating 40 to 45% of his pass production. So
except for last week when it was like 85% of it.
And we've seen Marshall line up against teams like that, right? Famously shut down Ollie Jennings against Old Dominion, right? 4 catches. I don't remember what it was, like 30-some yards or something like that.
4 for 37.
And he was the nation's number 2 wide receiver at the time. So if you want to go toe to toe with this Herd secondary, that's fine. That if that's the bet you want to bet, then okay. But that's not the way I would go, I think. Of course, I also wouldn't want to bet on running all over our defense either.
Yeah.
What's your number 2 key to victory?
Maintain the need to win. There's nothing on the line in this game. We already became bowl eligible. We cannot win the conference division. We cannot play in the conference championship game. Nothing does anything on paper, but there is so much more. You want the momentum going into the bowl game. You want to keep that momentum you have. You mentioned that it's a home game. You mentioned that it's senior day. We have so much fan perspective. Lord, have we talked about on this show how the ups and downs of our team would go right through the fan base, that if you lost this game, there would be so many people just, going off on, we need to clean house. We shouldn't have lost this game. We need it just for those things alone. This is a must-win game, even though it does not improve our chances in the standings or anything like that. We need it. We need to make a statement. So we need to not say, oh, well, nothing really to play for. You've got plenty to play for in every single game. Obviously, none of these players want to lose. I'm not saying that. Everyone wants to win. I don't care who you are, at what level. You don't go onto that field going, I don't really care if we win or lose. Every single player wants to win this game. But we just need to maintain that team, coach, everybody just all in. Don't let up, no foot off the gas. Just go out and win this game.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm going to add two things to that.
All right.
Just because I agree, and I want to make these points. This is the final home game for your seniors.
Yeah.
Okay, so they really want to make it memorable. You know,
Mhm.
they want to have that marquee game that they can talk. Man, my final game to Joan was awesome, and I think your younger guys want to do that for those guys. You know, because they look up to them, they respect them, and view them as, you know, elder statesmen on this team. Number two, you got to win it because, like you said, it's a home game. And I've said many times, and I firmly believe that if these losses that we have, some of these losses this season, if they come on the road and not at home, fans are happier because they just expect to come to Joan C. Edwards and win. And so many people want to continually be able to hang their hat on. You just don't come into Joan C. Edwards Stadium and win. And in more recent years, it's become less of a home field advantage, right? We've just lost games at home, and it's not something a lot of fans our age and a little bit older are used to. You know, you're used to coming into the Joan and watching the Herd dominate and walk out with a win. So that part will vocalize. They want to see that again. They want to have that again. I think we're working towards that, of course, right? Because, you know, winning against App State at home was big, right? If like the place would have melted down, I feel like if you lose that game, you'd have already lost to Coastal and you've already lost to Louisiana. You had to have that game, a 75-week rivalry game at home. You had to win, and they won. So this one is equally that. Let's have a dominating senior day performance to say, quiet all those folks that say you're supposed to get better as the season goes along. Well, I think we have been. I think we have been.
Oh, 100%. Without the Notre Dame game, there's no question. Including the Notre Dame game, I think that Notre Dame has improved a lot this year. But two, I think we go up to South Bend right now. We put a more dominating game together against Notre Dame than we did back in week 2. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough statement, right? I mean there's a lot of chest behind that one because that was a pretty impressive performance, and it's particularly from the defense, right? Particularly from the defense. But I think the offense definitely is a little bit smoother of a machine now than it was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think anybody would dispute that. So penalizing this team for making a necessary change to become better is, I don't know how, I can't define that. Like, what do you say if you don't make that change?
Yeah.
What do? You say, well, we should have done this a month and a half ago. Well, we did. So we did improve. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
I will say I feel like it's a little bit cheating for me to say that because now we have Rasheen Ali back, but whatever.
That didn't even occur to me yet. I guess that would have occurred to me here in a few more points. Number 2 key to victory for me is that kind of what you were saying, kind of what I said, but more particularly, I think this run defense just needs to get its groove back, and I think they will. They kind of got some runs put on them last week, and I bet they didn't appreciate that too well. And they know they've got a good running team coming in here. They're at home at senior day, all that kind of stuff. This is a great time to get your groove back and, start getting some penetration and licks on that quarterback and try to stifle this run game for this Georgia State Panthers team. This is just a good time to do that. And moreover, I just think they need to do that because this is what Georgia State does really well. What's number 3 for you?
We have to win not only third down, but fourth down. And let's go over the reasons why. You talked about these briefly, but their third down percentage, here we go. Their third down percentage is 40.36% that they're converting. Now, obviously, we're only giving up just over 21% of the time. But 67 of 166 for 40.36%. However, on fourth down, they have gone for it 24 times. They've converted 14 times, 58.33%.
Mm-hmm.
So don't really know. Like we talked about this before when I think it was App State had gone for it so many times on
Mm-hmm.
fourth down.
They did.
And I had not watched every single game, so I couldn't tell you every single reason why. If it was because they were in the red zone, if it was because they didn't have faith in their kicker, if it was because the game just dictated it at that point, I couldn't tell you what happened with this Georgia State team that they went for it 24 times. And it's not like that's even a crazy number, but to me, getting it 58.3% of the time, that's pretty good. They practice fourth down. Plus, they have a quarterback that if it's on fourth and short, is he going to rush it? Is he going to give it to somebody else? Is he going to throw it? We've got a lot of different options there. I just think that we have to come out and not allow them to convert at near that time. And that just means if it's on fourth down, we're getting the ball back in probably pretty decent territory. If it is on third down, we're forcing them to either have to go for one of these fourth downs or that they're going to punt or they're going to try to kick a field goal. No matter what, we're not giving up points on the board in that situation. Again, I know this sounds like what you said earlier, football 101, but you can't have keys to victory that just come out of nowhere and somebody goes, I never thought about that before. Yes, we should score more points than the opposition, but it's one of these things that we just absolutely have to do. We cannot allow them to extend drives and give them more points because that will just make this team dangerous if they can break one. Give them more opportunities to break one. That's how they've been putting their points up. Long passes, long rushes. We've got to keep the ball out of their hands because they score a lot. And what better way to do it is keep them off the field by making them punt it to us or turn the ball over.
I think that just is what good running teams do. They go for it on fourth down because they're generally in a situation, 4th and 2. You like your chances probably most of the time. I know we go for it a lot, and a lot of times I won't say a lot of times, but more times we get shut down on that fourth down run than we should, right? I'll put it that way. We should be able to convert a 4th and 2 freaking 90% of the time.
And we've been struggling with that the last couple of weeks when we really needed it.
Yeah.
They get, now this is all season long, not one player, the entire team, 4.7 yards per rush, and they rush it a lot. Again, we cannot allow them to rack up these third down conversions and fourth down conversions and everything because that's just a recipe to allow them to continue driving down the field. You got to stop them.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, this team is built to be defeated if you cover those football 101 things. Like some teams aren't. You can say stop the run against Georgia Southern, and it doesn't usually matter because they're an air raid offense. Well, it mattered we didn't stop the run last week. We won. It didn't matter, but I'm saying, who cares if you stop the run against an air raid team? It doesn't matter. My number 3 key to victory, again, football 101. I think you've got to win the turnover battle in this one because they obviously can take them to the house. They've got at least one touchdown off of an interception. They got 2 scooping scores last week against James Madison. So you can't give them extra opportunities. Now, again, I like the fact that James Madison gifted them 4 extra possessions, at least on 5. I don't even know if Centeio threw interceptions. He might have. I couldn't get past the fumbles category. 4 lost fumbles, and you still lost the game. I mean, that makes me feel pretty good, but I still don't want to see Marshall do that. It just feels like, I still feel like we're good for 1 a game. And if something bad happens, maybe 2 a game. So I still try to curb my enthusiasm to the point to where I feel like we might turn the ball over twice. So I look at it and I go, okay, can we offset 2 turnovers with either 2 of our own or weathering the storm with our defense to just force a punt and get the ball back? And by and large, I think, yes, we can do that. And this is one of those teams where I think we can do that. But I still would like us to either hold serve or win the turnover battle. You don't have a 4th. Did you do a 3rd? You did a 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't have a 4th, so we just get to talk about mine together. My fourth is what I'm calling spread the wealth. Because for the first time, what?
Did you do your third just
Yeah,
now?
win the
Okay.
turnover
All
battle.
right. I just making sure that was your third. And
No, my fourth is what I'm calling spread the wealth. Because for the first time this season, we get to talk about knowingly having a Cam Fancher, Rasheen Ali, Kalen Laburn backfield.
okay.
And I noticed in the James Madison game that's kind of what Georgia State does. They had all three of those major runners that we profiled. Each one had like 14, 13, and 11 carries. Nobody had 25, 6, and 1, you know? So that's kind of what we need to do. We've got three guys now that can just break the game on you. There's no reason to make anybody like overloaded. Nobody really needs to get tired because you can always have a fresh set of all American legs blazing down the field at any given time. And I feel like that is a huge luxury that we've only had once this season. And I sure would like to see it come out in a big way at home against this Georgia State team. So what do you feel about that one?
Well,
I'm for it.
a little bit of a preview, spoiler. I look for Rasheen Ali to have a massive game. I do think that they are going to spread it around because but they just cannot key on one singular player. And especially if we have, and I think that we saw a couple of times we had both running backs in the backfield in the last game. It just wasn't near what the potential could be with Fancher back there and Laboring on one side, Ali on the other, in the pistol especially. But I look for Ali to just absolutely go off and let everyone remember his name and why he has that name. That's so yeah, we're going to spread it around, but with the opportunities that we have, I think Ali really hammers it, and that's just going to make it make it a little bit easier for the other guys when it's their turn as well.
Yeah, I tell you what's intriguing to me, and most folks might say, "Man, you're an idiot." But think about that 4th and 2 where we talk about having trouble, and that's when you line up all three of those guys in a pistol formation. If you're a defensive player, who the hell do you key on? Because you can't plug every hole; something's going to be open, right? And you just have to guess right in order to stop that one. Because, geez, with those three guys back there and all the elusiveness, speed, power, and agility that they bring out of that backfield, covering the wrong hole, blocking the wrong running lane, that's a 4th and 2 to the house. So that becomes really intriguing. Who is your ThunderCast player of the week this week?
Spoiler alert, it was Ali. I look for him, like I said, maybe it's only because he scores the most touchdowns. He didn't get in the end zone last week. This is the last game of the season. I feel like that game was a let's get some of the game time rust off.
Sure.
Not that there was a bunch of it, but he didn't have like a 20-yard run here and the things that he's capable of. I don't think we threw to him out of the backfield.
I don't think so either.
I think we threw to Laburn, but that was a big part of his game last year. So I just look for him to have a lot more confidence in the knee, and he's got an extra week of practice underneath him for this week, and I just look for him to come in on a mission and really put up, whether it's that he gets his customary 2 to 3 touchdowns or that he comes in and puts up $150 or something like that. But I look for him to come in, even sharing the ball, look for him to come in and make a statement.
Yeah, I'm sure he would like to finish the regular season with at least one touchdown in that column. Would probably like to notch himself a 100-yard game. And just as a house cleaning effort while you were talking there, I did look it up, and we threw to Rasheen had one reception last week for 5 yards, just to keep it legit.
That's the only mistake I'll ever make on this show.
I love the pick of Rasheen Ali. I really do. I think Kalen Laburn, for all that he has done and as great as he have been, if it's not about personal accolades for him, if he's just not like, no, man, I really want to finish in the top 3 or 4 in rushing, then he's earned a lighter load because he's just carried this team from a workload standpoint all freaking year long, man. And the dude just has deserved to have a lighter load here right at the end. Um, I'm not saying he needs it or wants it. I'm just saying he's earned it and deserves it. If these scenarios present himself, I love it. I love the pick, but I think I'm going to go on a guy we profiled earlier and a guy that I haven't picked all year. I think Eli Neal is going to have to be my ThunderCast Player of the Week for what we talked about earlier, how he may be utilized to defend Granger. So he's fresh off of a great effort last week against Kyle Vantrease, where he got himself an interception, 11 total tackles last week. We might see him push up higher of that total this week. We may be talking about a 15 tackle performance based on what his responsibility is in this game, and if he can get one or two in the impact categories as well, maybe a sack or a forced fumble or something like that, you could be looking at the potential for a Sunbelt Defensive Player of the Week type game based on what he may be responsible for. So give me Eli Neal. You got a score prediction for this one, I suppose?
I do. I keep going back and forth on it, man, but I'm thinking 36-14. And a lot of people are going to say, what? We've scored above 28 one time this year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, was it 28 that we scored against Bowling Green? Or 31. I think 31. We had 20. It was 28-28 in the fourth quarter. So fourth quarter, 4-quarter games, we've scored 28 points, except for the Norfolk State game where we went off against an FCS opponent. But I don't see this being the offense that we have had all year long. We have Ali back. Laborn is Laborn. We have a much improved Fancher. So give me us scoring a lot of points. Give me us shutting down Georgia State 36-14.
I like that. I like that. I like the confidence of an offensive showing here in the finale at home. I like the Herd to finally get over 30 points for the first time in a long time, 8 weeks or something like that, but not as much as you do. And yeah, the trend of touchdowns being pulled off the board due to penalty always scares me. So give me the Herd 31-17 in this one. I do think we'll have plenty of successes against this Georgia State offense, but still, the Herd seems to be good for right around their average point total every week. So 17, that's slightly above, but could just as easily be 14, could easily be 10. I'm just going to err on the side of caution and go with 31-17. Some things that we don't make note of, we should mention maybe. We'll have to see if we have our full complement of wide receivers. We saw Gamage exit early last week. We don't know I haven't seen anything out about if he'll be playing or not. So hopefully he'll be back, because that's a huge weapon in the game to, not have lined up, even though we have seen an emergence of guys like EJ Horton, who I've been talking about for weeks as potentially ready to bust out. And we've seen it in a bigger and bigger way. Shadid Ahmed had a big bounce back breakout week last week. So that was nice to see. Jaden Harrison's been making plays over the last couple of weeks. A lot of these guys picking up slacks now that Talik Keaton is injured. We'll see what Gamage looks like. So this wide receiver room may be a little bit of a shakeup going into this one, but hey, I still like our chances. We saw a shakeup on the offensive line last week. Trent Holler went out early and just was in street clothes on the sidelines, but according to all that we know, everything should be a go, and the line should be back to the familiar 5 that you're used to seeing out there.
Yeah, X-rays, we do know about that. We've been given permission to talk. We usually do not disclose anything. We have permission to say that there was X-rays negative, a little dinged up or whatever, but should be 100% a go unless there was some kind of setback that I just don't imagine there being. Offensive linemen are tough, man, and it's hard to get them out of a game. And if nothing's broken and nothing's torn, and sometimes even if something is torn, they're still playing. But expect Holler to be a go.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? Because we're seeing big time successes from the offensive line since Cam has continued to evolve. And the last thing we want to do right now is cause a shakeup on that unit that may cause those sack numbers to shoot back up or something like that. So it's nice to know that Trent's A-OK and should be suited up and ready to dominate once again. Other than that, if you got any other final words, let's hear them. Otherwise, let's take this bad boy around the herd.
Let's go around the herd, and we're going to start off with men's soccer. This hasn't been out quite a bit. It's leaked out on Twitter, but nothing official, I guess is what you would say, which was a little surprising. But Luke Creasy is where I saw this first, and he had gotten it from the player himself's Instagram page. So Coastal Carolina's Alvaro Garcia Pascual is transferring to Marshall. That's a big deal because if I remember correctly, we had exactly one player that was not from Kentucky or Marshall on the first team all Sun Belt Conference, and it was Garcia Pascual. So the rich get richer. And by the way, why don't we take your best player and bring him over here? It's not like he came from Oklahoma or Indiana or we took him from the conference. So I think that just goes to show that everyone loves what they're seeing that this coach and program is doing, and let's bring over a really good player because why not?
Yeah, I don't know if this is permeated through the Coastal Carolina fan base yet, because you're right. There's really nothing out there about it. Even, we retweeted it and it really got no traction, which is wild. You're talking about a first team all Sun Belt Conference player switching jerseys and just coming over to play in Huntington.
Unless he's doing a massive troll job or something.
Well, that's what sir, kudos to you, because you've got us all hooked right now.
Yeah.
But this guy, if you don't know, I mean, probably more and more folks are starting to follow soccer more and more closely. And I keep famously telling you, I have no idea what I'm watching, but I like watching it. Pascual led Coastal Carolina in points, 21 points, 10 goals, 1 assist on the season. So you're getting firepower that's coming to Huntington. It's not just a guy that is a role player. This is a scorer. So think about the departure of Milo Yosef and how this teams up with young phenom Matthew Bell. And you start thinking, wow, the herd might just be dangerous scorers again. The trend will continue. And I don't really relate to what it's like to hear the saying, the rich get richer, but now I do. And I kind of like the feeling. So that's big news. That's a great way to start around the herd.
Yeah, and let's keep it there with the men's soccer team. Do not forget, folks, Sunday at 6:30 p.m., we are in the Sweet 16 at Bloomington playing Indiana. Rematch from the 2020, actually played in May of 2021 because of COVID, but the 2020 National Championship game where we beat Indiana on Jamel Roberts' golden goal, which will be the last one ever until they change rules, so let's all get on ESPN Plus, support the team. I think that there's probably going to be quite a few people traveling up for that to go watch. So listen for that Marshall faithful screaming out, "Let's go herd, let's go herd," and also some "We Are Marshall" chants. Let's go take it to the Elite Eight, baby. Softball schedule is out. Big news is that Alabama is coming to the dot. That was nothing that was broken. We had talked about that before, and it was all over social media toward the end of last season, if not over the off season. They'll also have a couple of March mini tournaments at the dot that will be fun to go to. March 3rd through the 5th is the first one, and then later in March they've got another one. So we talk a lot about how exciting this Marshall softball team is, but bringing in Alabama and Montana Fouts, who is kind of local, being able to come here and everything, it is going to be a pretty great atmosphere. Make sure you go over for that game. Go to all of them, but make sure you go to that one.
Yeah, the whole schedule, of course, is on Herd Zone. Please download the Herd Zone app so you can have all of this at your fingertips. There will be a lot of great matchups that will be taking place at the dot. One away game or away series that I guess you have to put your take your pen and circle is going to be the April 6th through the 8th series against Louisiana Monroe, because Corey used to be the coach down there at ULM, so I'm sure that's one that he'll have a little bit of added motivation to go in and get a dub. So check out the schedule, make it to as many of these games as you can. They're non-ticketed, right? They're free. Like, show up. The Dot's really fun venue. Hell, they got a parking lot. You can tailgate if you want to. They won't get mad at you. In fact, it probably enhance your experience.
And I think that we might even have a couple of ThunderCast live events there for softball. We've been talking that over, and that's on our to-do list. And we hope to obviously got some time to plan that out and finalize it. But we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, with these Olympic sports and some of the things, we're really trying to, get some shine onto them with our Thundercast lives and with our coverage, because they're just fun. A lot of those teams, the players, they really appreciate that stuff. They
Yeah.
realize they go to Marshall. They realize that the fan base is heavily invested in football, men's basketball, and men's soccer now. But you can be equally as invested in these other programs at literally no cost to you. Like, a little bit of time, get your butt out there and watch the game, have a little bit of fun. But anyway, going to be a great slate for the Herd at home at the Dot. So can't wait.
All right, so we have swimming and diving up next, and they finished 6th overall as a team in the Purdue Invite. Had a couple of players. No one won in their individual or team relay things that they did. None of the events, but just want to highlight Esther Laban or Laban. Really need, if anyone's listening out there, we really need those ears back on on herdzone.com, where everyone's telling how to say their names. But she is now, this is for the school, 3rd all time in the 1650 meter. And she placed 5th overall at the Purdue Invite. And Jenna Bopp said had a great last day, and she is now 2nd all time in the 200-meter breaststroke. So really good deal. We know that the meet that they had before was a lot better results and everything. This one, I believe, had a lot more competitors in it, more teams and that sort of thing. So I don't know. Anytime you're talking about 2nd in team or school history, 3rd in school history, it's worth noting and cheering on. So I would like to see, us grow from this and have, well, now they're same as we're talking in cross country and track and field and stuff. They were 2nd, then they're beating their time. Now they're up to 1st, that sort of thing. So let's go get some records set here at Marshall in swim and dive.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they used to be a really, really strong program back in the Southern Conference days. I had as a teacher, Dr. Bob Saunders, who was the swim and dive coach forever, and he used to sing the praises of that program for a long, long time. So I know they were really competitive and really, really good. Not just competitive, they were really good. And we're seeing that, right? Cross country is reaching new heights. So
Yeah.
maybe we can reach some of those heights uh, of Southern Conference seasons past right now in the Sun Belt era with Herd Swim and Dive. Well, it'll be the Sun Belt era next year, I guess.
And this is not a thing for around the herd cross country, but I saw the coach. We have highlighted how he is a really good runner in long distance and everything. I saw him yesterday morning running, the park trail by my house, and later on in the afternoon, which was probably a good 6 hours later, I saw him running in the park trail by the house. I don't know, now that we know that he does these like ultra marathons and stuff, it might have been the same run.
He may have never quit.
Yeah. So it may have been 2 separate. I don't know. Both are equally impressive to a guy like me who does not run. But yeah, he could have been running for over 6 hours.
Jeez.
All right, let's finish it up with men's and women's basketball. We'll do them individually, but men's basketball had 2 victories on since we did our last around the herd. They beat Coppin State on Saturday, 86-67, And then after struggling in a back and forth against Chicago State, they pulled away 82-70, and that was on Monday. Uh, they host Morehead State on Saturday at 7 p.m. So after the football game, you mentioned it on the show a couple of days ago. Really good opportunity for everybody to go out, pack up their tailgates, grab dinner at a local restaurant, make your way over to the Cam, pack the Cam out and watch a really good basketball game. Morehead State is always one of these back and forth close games and everything. So nothing would make me happier than to blow them out by 15, 20, something like that. But should be a good game, and we owe those guys at least a couple.
Yeah, I would say so. Let me talk about just some quick stats. I don't remember if we talked about them at all. Did we talk about any of it? The Coppin State game on the recap?
No, we did not. As far as I'm aware, we left that off because that was going to be an around the herd deal.
Okay. So all I wanted to say is that, by the way, I heard a sound clip of, I think it was Jake Griffin, talking about how we have all around Herd Nation, Herd Universe here, been mispronouncing Obena's name his entire time here at Marshall. He says his name is pronounced Obena. So we shall fix that, Mr. Anna Chili Killing. Obena. Against Coppin State, Obena gets a double-double, 15 points and 11 rebounds. Andy Taylor goes for 14 points, and Tavion Kinsey, 23 points, 8 and 8 in rebounds and assists. And against Chicago State, man, what a great showing by a number of our guys. Obena again, 13.7 rebounds. Micah Hanlogden gets himself his first career her double-double, 12 points, 13 rebounds. Andy Taylor, 24 points, and Tavion Kinsey, 22 points. Man, oh man, they're scoring. And, you know, for all the folks that were cheesed off that Marshall lost a heartbreaker in their opener, they haven't lost another one yet. So 4-1 on the season and kind of cruising.
Yeah, and we had just talked in the recap of the first 4 games when I was saying it was, or maybe it's first 3, whatever it was, about Obina. I've been calling him Obina, and that's because that's what they had been saying on the broadcast.
Had I not heard that soundbite from Jake, I would have never known.
Yeah, I thought, why is he all of a sudden mispronouncing? You know, when I was
he asked him, he said, "Why didn't you say anything?" He said, "I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings."
Yeah.
What? It's your name, dude. You're supposed to say, "Yeah, that ain't right."
You know, mispronounce mine. I let everybody know. But anyway, I had been saying I wanted him to get involved in the offense and everything. It seemed like he had been lost a little bit, and he has come back like gangbusters, and he's all over the boards. He's a presence down low. I watched both of those games. The game on Saturday I had on my phone as I watched on the big screen the football game, and it was seemingly to me he was on a mission to get himself involved in there. So I don't know if he took it personally on himself or if the coaches were encouraging him to be more aggressive or whatever, but he was definitely more involved. He was banging on the boards. Hanlogden, man, I've said it again, or I will say it again. He is already, whether he scores 0 points or if he scores 12 points, he is a factor in this game. And he's on the floor. He's chasing down loose balls. It's everything you want to see out of a freshman. So, other thing that we have to say about men's basketball is Tavion Kinsey was the Sun Belt Player of the Week, scored just under 22 a game, and shot 60% from the floor during that time. He is our team leader, as much as Andy Taylor is also a team leader, but Tavion, just seems to be that face of the program. And early in the season, he's already bringing it home for the Sun Belt.
Mm-hmm.
Women's basketball, we had talked about there on a little MTE mini team event down in Savannah, Georgia. They played Monday and they won against UT Martin 70-57. A low-scoring affair the next day, they beat Purdue Fort Wayne 45-39. Really, really gritty, grind that out victory. And today, later tonight, they play Norfolk State to end that mini-team event. That'll be at 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And don't forget, while you're in for the weekend, they host Duquesne on Sunday at 1 p.m.
Let me go
We
back real fast and let
I
what
was
do
just,
you well, I
I was
was
just gonna
gonna
say we have tickets.
oh,
That's
okay,
all I was gonna
yes.
say.
We do have tickets. Let me go back. You mentioned Tennessee Martin game was a fairly
Mhm.
low scoring affair. The bulk. Oh, what were you talking about?
No,
The other.
The Purdue
Oh,
Fort Wayne
okay.
was low scoring.
Okay. 70-57. The bulk of Marshall's points came from the hands of three ladies. Mahogany Matthews, 16 points. Abby Beeman, 16 points. Rashala Scott, another 19 points against UT Martin. Just lighting it up from the field. They shot almost 50% from the field in that game against UT Martin, 48, just to take over 48%. I mean, dang. It was a spread the wealth kind of game. It looks right a little bit more so against Purdue Fort Wayne. Abby Beeman again with 12 points, Rashala Scott with 14 points. And then it was just kind of, 6 here, 7 there, 2 or 3 here and there. But what a pickup. This Abby Beeman chick, this ball player has been for this Herd ladies basketball team. We knew coming in, what was she, like a D2 All American? Is that what it was? Division two?
Yep.
All American. And we knew she was going to play an integral role for the Herd. And boy, were we right about that one. Tony Kemper got himself a diamond along with some of these other players. I mean, man, we were worried. We had been concerned with so much turnover. How was it going to look? I don't know if concerned is the right. Maybe we were more intrigued. How's this all going to work? How's this all going to look? And man, early in the season, it looks pretty darn good. Toe to toe with the Big Ten team all the way up until the end when the Boilermakers went on a little bit of a run. And much like the men, after the opener, haven't lost a game. So
Yep.
congratulations to Tony Kemper and his staff, all those players on that roster. They're doing a hell of a job here in the early going of the season. Couldn't be happier for them.
Big turnover on the staff, like we talked about. Big turnover, obviously, on using the transfer portal for the squad. So,
yeah,
big ups to them all around. Get over there and watch them on Sunday. Again, we have tickets. We have tickets to the men on Saturday. We'll be giving those away. But go over and watch women's basketball. I've been able to watch them on TV. I haven't been able to go. I'm gonna try to sneak over there on Sunday, see if I can't go over and watch. But they deserve us to be jamming the cam just as much as the men. Let's get over there, give them a good homecoming for after this 3-game road trip down in Savannah on Thanksgiving week.
yeah.
So let's give them a good welcome home with a big crowd on Sunday.
Yeah, and like you said, we give tickets away to every home game, and it's really easy to win. Basically, all you got to do is like the contest tweet, and so few people do that you have an excellent opportunity to win tickets. All we ask is that if you like the tweet, make sure you can go to the game. That's all we want. We just want for people to go. If you enter the contest, don't just win, just try to win. Win to go. And if you can't go, don't enter because we want people to go. Anyway, you got anything else, Russ? Let's have it. Otherwise, take us out of here.
Well, we will be giving away our usual 4 tickets for the Georgia State football game, but we have already put up on our Twitter page and our Facebook page that we have a singular ticket from one of our loyal followers. He gave us that at the last home football game, said, "Hey, I won't be able to make it in. I'd like for this to go to use." I put it up with just asking for something a little bit different since it's a physical copy and you'll be bringing it by the tailgate. I asked for people to put their favorite thing that we've done so far in our first less than 8 months. And that's not to try to get any kind of pats on the back or anything. It just gives us a little bit of feedback of something that we can do. If you're enjoying that maybe we can do more of. So that's where I'm at right now. Just kind of put that on there again. We don't need pats on the back. We just want to know what you enjoy that we've done, so we can bring more content like that. If it's that we give away tickets and that's your thing, comment about it.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, whatever you want to say is fine. We're not going to cherry pick and say, well, this guy gave us a good compliment, he gets the tickets. It's not about that. So if you're looking for a single ticket for the game, please get on there and comment so this ticket does not go to waste.
That's right. You just have to pick it up at the tailgate, which is a great reason to enter, because you get to come by the ThunderCast tailgate and have a good time with Russ. So, Russ, if that's it.
Thanksgiving sandwiches, by the way. Mimosas, screwdrivers, plenty of beer.
Look here. Cooper has busted in. So everybody that is going to watch the video podcast, you're going to see my son for the last couple of minutes while Russ takes us out of here, because I'm not editing this. Go. Let's have it.
All right. So whether you see us at the Cam, whether you see us at the Dot, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us throwing down some Thanksgiving sandwiches at ThunderCast Live, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a safe and healthy weekend. Go Herd. We're out of here.